Everyone knows that J.K. Dobbins has been good over the first couple of games, but I'm not sure everyone realizes how good, because so far in 2024, J.K. Dobbins has been the best, most explosive running back in the NFL.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 9 seasons, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen. And to make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, before the season started, J.K. Dobbins told anybody who would listen that if he was healthy, he expects to be one of the best backs in the National Football League. Well, that's exactly what he has been through 2 games. And what will the Chargers do with Elijah Molden when Alohi Gilman comes back? Because he played so well in his stead. I think he's going to be part of that rotation going forward. And what do the Chargers have to do to prove that they are a good football team?
The good news is we should know over the next couple of weeks, because they're playing 2 teams that are 2-0 right now. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. David, we've talked a lot about J.K. Dobbins because he has been basically the star of each of the first 2 games for the Chargers offensively. I mean, 266 yards over the first 2 games is going to get our attention, and I think is obviously one of the things that has made us believe so quickly in the turnaround that this team could make into a blue-collar, hard-nosed, physical type of team. And it starts with what they've been able to do in the running game, and you can't talk about that without talking about J.K. Dobbins, and we've talked about how good he is, but I just don't know if Chargers fans, or even if he's getting enough media attention as being what he has been, which is the best running back in the NFL. And it is only 2 weeks, David, but it's been incredibly impressive, borderline absurd what J.K. Dobbins has done over the first couple of weeks.
It really, truly has. I mean, we're talking about 266 yards rushing, which leads the NFL with only 27 carries.
Yeah.
That is good for an absolutely absurd 9.9 yards per carry. We're talking about nearly a first down every single time he touches the football. That is ridiculously insane. 7 runs of 10 plus yards, 3 runs of 40 plus yards, including 2 touchdowns, also 4.81 yards after contact, and he has forced 9 missed tackles through 2 games. J.K. Dobbins has been simply incredible through 2 games in this 2024 season.
Yeah, it's crazy how efficient that he's been. I mean, 9.9 yards, like you said, is insane. I mean, leads all running backs. The next closest running back to him in yards is Jordan Mason at 247 yards. But every other back in the top 5 of rushing yards has at least 19 more carries than J.K. Dobbins does, just to kind of show what he's been able to do with so little. And I mean, you talked about the 4.81 yards after contact per attempt. I mean, 170 of his 266 yards are after contact. Last year, Austin Eckler ranked 40 out of 50 in that stat of anyone that had at least 50 carries. So just to show you the stark difference, right? 5th in the missed tackles forced. He's breaking a tackle on 33% of his runs, which is insane. And also, as far as the missed tackles forced, the only reason he ranks 5th in that is because 3 of the 4 guys ahead of him have at least 22 more carries than he has. So he has easily been the best running back in the NFL so far. And I think the big thing for the Chargers is being able to find explosive plays in the running game. And so far, it's been a much more explosive start on the ground for the Chargers than it ever was in any point in 2023. I mean, the Chargers haven't been very explosive in the passing game, David, but they have supplemented it well with big plays in the running game. I mean, you talked about it. J.K. Dobbins leads the league in 20-plus and 40-plus yard runs. The 3 40-plus yard rushes that he has right now, the rest of the NFL has 4 40-plus yard rushes.
Total.
Combined.
Wow.
Every other team in the NFL has 4 40-plus yard rushes. J.K. Dobbins has 3.
That's unreal.
It's crazy. I mean, it's as many 40-plus yard rushes as Christian McCaffrey had all of last year, and he ranked third in the NFL.
Through
and
2
also
games.
had 270-plus. Right, he had 10 times as many carries as J.K. Dobbins had last year, and he already has as many explosive 40-plus yard runs as Christian McCaffrey did. I mean, he would have ranked third for the season last year, and the leader was Devin Achane at 5. He has 2 through 3 games. Last year, just to kind of show how much more explosive they are than then, the Chargers had 140-plus yard rush, and it was Joshua Kelly. Austin Eckler had 3 20-plus yard rushes all of last season. J.K. Dobbins has 3 of those already. So it is, with him specifically getting those explosive plays, I think a little bit of a relief to see that they're still able to find those big gains somewhere, especially because things have been a little bit slower in the passing game.
Yeah, they have been. They really have been, and they've already established this identity of, I'm going to run the football. I'm going to continue to be relentless with it. But it's good to know that when they do continue to go that route, that it's going to hit and it's going to pop. And it's not just going to be your 5-6 yard runs occasionally. We're going to mix in some 10, 15, 20, 40-plus yard, big, humongous, game-changing plays in the running game, which is just pure backbreakers to the defense.
And I mean, even Gus Edwards had 6 20-plus yard rushes last year, which is twice as many as Austin Eckler had, and he hasn't even gotten going yet. So
No.
I think we'll continue to see more of that. Maybe not, a 1.5 40-plus yard runs every single game, but I think that they are going to keep finding those explosives. And like we talked about, it doesn't happen without tight ends and wide receivers blocking down the field. And it doesn't happen without an offensive line that's been incredible. And I think also without 2 of the best tackles in the league, which is what the Chargers have so far. I mean, the Chargers per PFF actually lead the league in rushing yards before contact. So that's a great combination. J.K. Dobbins, second most yards after contact per attempt, and his offensive line isn't getting him touched until a few yards down the field. But so far, David, Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater are already a top 3 tackle duo. And we talked about when they made the pick, hey, best case scenario, Justin Herbert has the best set of tackles in the NFL. Of course, they would already kind of be in contention for that if there weren't just some ridiculous tackles out there, and a couple teams like the Eagles and the Vikings who have ridiculous bookends there.
Yeah.
But they're already the best in the AFC, the best tackle duo there. According to PFF, they're both the top 11 in offensive grades so far in 2024. And last week, David, they were the best 2 tackles overall out of the entire league.
Yeah, and it showed on tape. When you watch both those guys, that they were dominant. Like, they didn't really let anybody come anywhere close to Justin Herbert. They were road grading. I mean, especially Rashawn Slater. Rashawn Slater was putting people in the grass repeatedly, time after time. Looking at the grades here, Rashawn Slater has the second highest pass block grade in the entire NFL at 89.7. Also has a respectable 75.7 run block grade. Joe Alt, a 79.1 pass block grade and a 74.6 run block grade. As you said, they are the 3rd highest graded tackle duo in the entire NFL and the number 1 graded tackle duo in the week 2 of the NFL. So very well-rounded, attacking and, really effective as run blockers and pass blockers. Justin Herbert is in great hands, hopefully, for a very long time.
Yeah, both guys rank in the top 15 of pass blocking, the top 14 technically, and both guys rank in the top 20 of run blocking. And we're talking about a league that, there's 64 starting tackles. So to do that, I mean, to be in the top half of the top half already, Joe Alt's 2 games in, I think is incredible. And I think that even though it's easy to say it after a game against the Panthers, but it was a Jadeveon Clowney that racked up 9.5 sacks last year. So they still had that dude. And he did absolutely nothing. He just got shut out in every sense of the word in that game. I mean, he probably wishes he got stoned because of how bad that game was. But we still have more to get into because it is a Chargers mailbag day, and we want to get into your guys' questions, including what happens with Elijah Molden when Alohi Gilman comes back, because the dude has been arguably the best player on the defense, and there are going to be some tough decisions to be made. So we're going to talk about that and how sustainable some of the hot starts are for the Chargers players who have just been playing out of their minds so far, and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, I need to tell you guys about DoorDash because football is finally back, which means it's time to order your favorite game day food, snacks, and drinks on DoorDash without missing a play. You can't have football Sunday without DoorDash. DoorDash can take a lot of the stress away from having people over for the game because you don't need to cook for hours and hours because you can have all of your game day favorites delivered through DoorDash. DoorDash is also perfect for if you forget something like buns for your burgers or chips for your dips. Why miss any of the game when you can have it show up right to your doorstep? And also, having a baby and having something like DoorDash is so clutch and so crucial to how my game day experience goes. And since you guys listen to this show, you can save some money because you can use the promo code LOCKEDFALL24 for 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 on your first order. Limited time offer, terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to get your game day favorites. Must be 21 plus to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available in select markets. You've also heard us talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little bit different for you guys right now because right now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. I know David uses YouTube TV. I recently switched over to YouTube TV, and having NFL Sunday Ticket for all of your FanDuel bets, for those who play, I can't think of anything better. And for the first time this weekend, the Chargers are going into this game as underdogs. They're opening as 1.5-point underdogs to the Steelers. It'll be very interesting to see where that line goes this week, but I think the Chargers have a great chance of winning this game. I think they will have an advantage defensively, and we will see what this offense can do against this Steelers defense, which has almost been as good as what the Chargers have been able to do. So it is a prove-it game for the Chargers, but you can get them on the money line at plus 112 right now since they're underdogs. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Dave, let's continue this Chargers mailbag, or at least let's dip into our Chargers mailbag because we have a lot of fan questions that we want to get into today and a lot of voicemails that we want to get into today. Thank you to everyone who called in at 323-524-7924, or also everyone who hit us up on Twitter at LockedOnLAC. But David, the next person we have on here has a really great question about what's going to happen when a certain Charger star defender comes back. Let's hear what Kyle has for us.
Hi, this is Kyle from San Diego, longtime listener of Locked On Chargers. My question is, what do you think Jesse Minter does with Elijah Molden when Alohi Gilman comes back? Will he stay at safety, or will he go to corner? Do you think they'll both be on the field starting? Thank you. Bolt up, baby.
David, it's a great question because Elijah Molden has been nothing short of great. He's been the Chargers' highest graded defender in 2024 per PFF. At the same time, can Alohi Gilman lose his starting job after one game? So some decisions are going to have to be made about how they get these guys into this rotation now.
Yeah, I mean, Elijah Molden's been phenomenal. A 91.7 coverage grade on PFF, which is ridiculous. A passer rating allowed of 37.5. Fantastic. 58 of his 67 snaps have come at free safety, but Jesse Minter likes to rotate guys in. So even, you look back to week 1 when the Chargers did have Alohi Gilman, Elijah Molden played 19 snaps, even, and most of those came at free safety. So I think, this is part of Jesse Minter's philosophy on defense is, hey, if I have good players, then I want to put them on the field and I'm going to keep them rotated. I want to keep them fresh. And so that way, when the game's on the line and I need to have a particular matchup where I feel like Elijah Molden might be a better coverage person than Alohi Gilman, then I'm going to throw him in there and I'm going to have full confidence that he's going to be able to go out there and get the job done.
Yeah, well, and I mean, like he has said, right? He wants like 20 players to get snaps defensively, which is crazy. And we'll see if he's able to do it. But I think it's a little different, though, because it's like you don't want him only getting 19 snaps, right? You want him getting more than that. I think what you're going to see is a huge increase in those 3 safety looks. I think the other big part of this is it just gives you more flexibility with Derwin James. What did Derwin James tell us before? It's about him being able to move around and trusting who's back there. Yep. I don't know who you trust more on the back end right now more than Elijah Molden. I think he showed you last week that he has the ability to make breaks on the football and make plays on the back end, which hasn't always been a strength and hasn't been a strength for a while for the Chargers back there. So I think you're going to see more Derwin James in the slot. I think you're going to see more Derwin James on the line of scrimmage blitzing. I think you're going to see Elijah Molden's role, no matter what happens with Elijah Gilman over these next couple weeks is I think now you don't also have to rush him back, right? Because you have someone playing in his stead so well. He's going to have a role no matter what. You know, what it is, how many snaps he's going to get, that is going to be what Jesse Minter has to balance. Because it's not like Elijah Gilman should lose his job, but it does feel like Elijah Molden brings something different to this defense. And all three of those guys are definitely three of your best 11 players on that side of the football. So Jesse Minter, I have confidence, will make it work. But there's a lot of guys who have been performing much better than we've ever seen, including Elijah Molden. And I think it brings up a good question that we have here from Casey.
Hey, my name is Casey. Question. Assuming that they all stay healthy, do you think that the level of play we're seeing from players like J.K. Dobbins, Kristian Fulton, Joey Bosa, and others is sustainable season long? Thank you very much. Bolt up, baby.
It's a great question, David, and it won't be sustainable for everyone, but it's hard to kind of pick out who it's not going to be sustainable for. I mean, I think it also depends kind of what you mean by sustainable. Like J.K. Dobbins isn't going to average 10 yards per carry for the whole season.
No.
But I also, in this, you're assuming health, right? If you're assuming health, I assume that J.K. Dobbins and Joey Bosa and Kristian Fulton are going to have monster seasons. So I do, and that, like, it might not be as good as it is. They might not be able to keep up historic statistical paces, but I think all of these guys that he's bringing up right here are going to continue to be good throughout the rest of the season if they're healthy.
Yeah, if you're guaranteeing me that all of these guys that were mentioned is just going to stay healthy and they're going to be able to go out there and play 17 plus games, then yeah, I mean, I think you look back at all 3 or 4 of these guys that were mentioned, they have seasons on record of high quality play. Okay. Kristian Fulton had a very dominant year a couple of years ago. J.K. Dobbins has seasons on record where he averages over 6 yards a carry. So like this guy is legitimately good. Like, yes, for his career, 6 yards a carry. Joey Bosa, when he's healthy, I said it on yesterday's show, when he plays 16 games, he does get over 10 sacks every single time. So if he is healthy, he is one of the most dominant edge rushers in the entire NFL, most complete edge rushers in the NFL. If all of those guys stay healthy, then yes, I can see them sustaining some level of the quality of play that they are now. I'm not going to say 100% of it, but even 75% of it would be a truly phenomenal year for all of those guys that were mentioned.
Kristian Fulton probably not going to allow only half a yard per game on average for the rest of the season.
Probably not.
I just think all those guys are going to be good. To your point, we've seen good play from all of them. I mean, at least in the case of J.K. Dobbins and Joey Bosa, every time they've ever been on the field, they've been great. It's always been about being on the field. So there are some other guys, the Bradley Bozeman's, the Hayden Hurst, Will Dissly's, some other Denzel Perryman. Can all of those guys sustain? It won't be everyone, but it does feel like, especially as the Chargers face better teams, we'll find out a little bit more. But I mean, none of those guys you mentioned I see dropping off anytime soon. But let's get to this last one here from Mark S., who's saying, I'm assuming the Chargers got Taylor Heinicke to be the primary backup to Justin Herbert. But if that's true, when will he be ready to take over Stick's spot? And I think this has surprised people, David, because Taylor Heinicke has been the emergency quarterback in these games, which means Easton Stick would have to leave the game and not come back in for Taylor Heinicke to get snaps for this team behind Justin Herbert. But we also know he's new. So what do you think here? How long do you think it's going to take?
Yeah, I mean, for Taylor Heinicke, like, he was with a different organization the entire offseason and got traded like right after the rosters were cut down to 53. So
did Elijah Molden, but it's just it's a very different position, right? Because Elijah Molden, obviously, you can't really hold him in that standard because he just got here and he's been the best defender they've had. So it's
sure, but he's coming from a similar defense, and so like that's something that's a little bit easier to translate. And also, when you're factoring in a game plan, like Jesse Minter has said, like they can really fine tune that and say, hey, this is what I need you to focus on. From the quarterback's got to know everything. Like, he's got to know the blocking. He's got to know got to get chemistry with the receivers. He's got to know the offense frontwards and backwards. That's just a lot to ask. So I'm thinking probably a couple more games at least. Get him a solid month of time in the system with the coaches. And I think obviously from a play perspective, we know Taylor Heinicke is someone that the organization should trust more than what we've seen from Easton Stick.
Yeah, I don't think the Chargers traded for him to have him be the emergency quarterback, at least in my opinion. I mean, I think they did it because they don't want to see what has to happen if Easton Stick is the primary backup to Justin Herbert. Yet through 2 games, if Justin Herbert would have gotten hurt and did get hurt, but Easton Stick never made it fully onto the field, thankfully, it would have been him, right? And like you wouldn't have seen Taylor Heinicke. So I think it's hard because one of the big ways that Taylor Heinicke helps you is he's now your probably scout team quarterback and probably gives you a much better look at who they're going up against depending on the matchup than Easton Stick would be able to kind of emulate. But if you're constantly emulating other teams' quarterbacks and playbooks to try to give the Chargers starting defense a good look, how much does that hinder your ability to get up to speed in your own playbook? So I think, hey, if he's out there balling out at practice, and it just seems so obviously that he's the better guy, which I think he would be, I think we'll see the switch. Maybe in the next few weeks, maybe after the bye week is where I kind of put the landmark, because then you have a little bit more time where it's not just all singled in on one single game plan for the next opponent that you have. But we still have more of this Chargers mailbag to dip into, including what the Chargers have to do over these next couple of games, 2 games against what have been 2 good teams so far, and obviously the best team in the league in the Chiefs, to show us that they're one of the best teams in the league, or even just to show us that they're a good team contending for the playoffs. We're going to get into that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about Game Time, because if you're getting tickets to anything, not just sports, but music, theater, comedy, whatever you're going to, whatever event that you find, you can probably get tickets on Game Time, and you can also get the best prices on Game Time, because Game Time comes with the Game Time guarantee, meaning if you find on another site the same row and section for less, Game Time will reimburse you 110% of the difference. And they also have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all of the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You guys can get tickets on Game Time right now for the Chargers game at home against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. That is one I wish I could definitely go to. And you can see a panoramic view of your seat before you buy them. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Dave, let's continue this mailbag that we have here, and thank you to the everydayers who hit us up at Locked On LAC, making us your first listen as always, and calling into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924. And for a second listen, make sure you guys check out the new lineup on Locked On NFL, who are now putting out 2 shows a day, where in the morning you can get Tyler the Madman rolling, giving you a double shot of NFL espresso, and then you can kick back with Tony Wiggins in the barbershop to get some real down-to-earth NFL talk. Make sure you guys check that out on YouTube or wherever you guys get your podcast from. But David, we have more good voicemails to get into, including, I think, a question that's on a lot of people's minds right now.
Yo, what's going on, guys? So pumped about the start of the season. As pumped as I am, I do want to tone down some expectations. I think this is a really good football team, but it is early. We only did beat the Raiders and the Carolina Panthers. My question to you guys is, what do we have to do in these next 2 games to solidify your viewpoint as this team being a dominant team in the football league? Do we have to beat the Chiefs? Do we have to almost beat the Chiefs? Do we have to beat the Steelers? Do we have to almost beat the Chiefs, but they win because the refs win? What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I think, if you're playing the Chiefs, the refs are always going to be a factor in a negative way at some point or another. But I think it's a great question, Dave, because I think we can unequivocally sit here and say that we will know much more about this team after the next couple of weeks. And it's hard not to kind of put too much in these next 2 weeks baskets, because you'll only be 4 games into the season at that point. At the same time, you beat the Steelers, that means something. You beat the Chiefs, that also means something. So, what do you think that the Chargers have to do over these next couple of weeks to kind of show that they're contenders this year?
Yeah, I mean, they have to beat good teams. I mean, and that means teams that are right now currently 2-0, and they have opportunities to do that the next 2 weeks. I feel like at the very least, they have to beat the Steelers, and they have to be extremely competitive against the Chiefs. If they beat the Chiefs, then we might start having conversations about the Chargers being one of the better teams in the NFL, let alone the AFC conference. So I think that's what absolutely has to be a bare minimum, is beating the Steelers and being extremely competitive. And if not, beating the Chiefs, I think that's what it's going to have to take to be labeled as a dominant team.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I don't think anyone's calling you a dominant team after beating the Panthers and the Raiders. And I know the Raiders beat the Ravens. I still don't think that the Raiders are a super good team. I mean, FTR forever, but like I don't know. They always have a couple of fluky wins every season, but I think that if they beat the Steelers and they have a very close game against the Chiefs, I will consider them as a playoff team. Like, hey, this is a playoff team. This team's ready to make a run for the playoffs and probably a wild card spot this year. Because if you're not going to beat the Chiefs, it's hard to say that they're going to come for the AFC West and win the division. Then again, if they can stay close, if they can prove that the formula works, right? Shrink the clock, take away possessions from Patrick Mahomes, keep things close and give yourself a chance at the end. I think that'll be super encouraging, and it lets you know that they're not going to necessarily run away with both of these games, and that the Chargers are going to be in it and trying to fight, and give Justin Herbert a chance to take down a two-time Super Bowl champion, two-time reigning Super Bowl champion, three-time Super Bowl champion. So I think that leads nicely to this next question here from Arc of Darkness, who asks, if the Chargers go into the bye week 4-0, what are your expectations become for the rest of the season then? Are you expecting them to win the West? Is it AFC Championship? What do you think your expectations would change, like David, if the Chargers are 4-0 at the bye week? Because I know you're going to just be shouting from the rooftops.
I absolutely. Oh my goodness. Don't let that happen. Don't let that happen for the sake of other teams, because I will be insufferable. I promise.
David's
you.
head won't fit in the screen anymore. We'll have to find a new background.
It will be gigantically big. Now, if they go into the bye week at 4-0, then I'm sitting here and saying that my expectations changed from being a wild card team to being AFC West champions. That's where my expectations changed to, because to be able to beat the man, or to be the man, you got to beat the man. And of course, the man right now is the Kansas City Chiefs. And so if you showcase the ability to beat the Chiefs, which up to this point, nobody else has been able to, then yes, the expectations should change to coming for the crown.
Yeah, I don't think it feels realistic to take the AFC West away if you can't beat the Chiefs in this first matchup. Like, it doesn't mean it's still impossible, but I don't know how you would project it, right, when you know that they're better than you, at least at that point. It is such a great barometer. Just because they lose in this next game to the Chiefs that they have, or the first game of the two matchups, doesn't mean they're a bad team either, right? So, like, it will be hard not to get carried away if they do go 4-0 into the bye week. And, they could immediately get humbled and lose in Denver to a terrible Broncos team so far this season, because it's just an insanely hard place to play. It's hard to say, but I do think it does recalibrate your expectations, where just making the playoffs doesn't feel good enough. Maybe not even just one playoff win feels good enough anymore. Maybe it's making it to an AFC Championship game, but it's still only 4 weeks. So I'd understand if that's where your expectations move to, but I think for me, it would tell me, hey, this is a team that should absolutely be contending at the top of the AFC and will have a legitimate chance to make the Chiefs a wild card team for the first time in so long. But I would love to see it and get there and fix the rest of the problems you have during the bye week, right? But we have one more from Athir here, who has a great question about potentially an 18-game season in the NFL.
Hi, David. My baby, this is Athir. I got a good question to ask. Okay, so you heard about the NFL possibly going to an 18-game schedule. The roster has to get expanded to 59 or 60 players. Do you think that is possible, or do you think that's asking too much? Let me hear you, my baby. Thanks. Love you.
I mean, I think we know the money talks, and I think an 18-game season, even if it's not good for the players and like it's an unhealthy thing, it's probably going to happen at some point, and it would definitely make sense for them to have some extended rosters. And really, honestly, there's no reason why they shouldn't have, 57-man roster or 60-man roster.
Yeah, I definitely feel like if they extend things to 18 games, taking away another preseason game, they should have anywhere between 56 and 59 players, I think, available to them, at least on the active or on their roster. I just feel like you're going to go through more attrition. It's a violent, very physical game. You got to have more bodies to be able to get you to the promised land.
And at the same time, though, they went up to 17 games. I think it was still a 53-man roster, right?
Yeah.
They did change some practice squad rules as far as like guys who can get elevated and stuff like that. But like, it's always a money thing. You could adjust the salary cap, right? The salary cap is a made up thing. I mean, it's not like there's a reason why the number is what it is.
But it's made by the NFL though, right?
It's made in their own best interest of not having to spend more money than they have to, because they know, Jerry Jones, if he didn't have a salary cap, would just be spending, $500 million in offseason. Trying to get every player in the league, and then the gap in wealth between the ownership would be very apparent.
Yes,
but to me, this is the more interesting thing here. I expect it to happen. even if the players don't want it to happen, and we'll see kind of what they can get in collective bargaining that. But I think having a guy like a Ben Herbert really plays itself out, right? It really shows up as an advantage in an 18-game season. I think having a guy like Joe Ortiz, who has already shown you he's built much better depth than we ever saw under Tom Telesco in the past, really helps you, because the one big depth piece he traded for right before the season has been the Chargers' best defensive player over the last 2 weeks in Elijah Molden, arguably. So I think that case is already closed for the most part. But all this to say, if it does go to 18, I think that everything that the Chargers have done and the trajectory that they have now, the way the arrow is pointing, is much better set up for it, because an 18-game season in years past would have been terrifying to me, right? Like we saw Mike Williams get hurt in a week 18, right? Game 17 game. That was terrifying. You're always waiting for one more guy to get hurt. So I think you at least feel a little bit better. Hey, if it does go to 18, at least with Jim Harbaugh, you feel like you're way more well equipped for it. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. Make sure you guys are back tomorrow, because you know what it is. It's crossover Thursday. 2-2-0 teams, Locked On Chargers, Locked On Steelers. To make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcast from. And you can also find the show every day on our social media. You can find us on Twitter at Locked On LAC. Thank you to everyone who hit us up there with their questions today, or on our Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. You can also find the show every day on our own personal accounts. You can find me at Dan Talk Sports on Twitter and David at Dro Talk SD. Thank you to everyone who called into the voicemail line. 4 voicemails on today's show. That might be a record. You can call in at 323-524-7924 if you ever want to get your 30-second Chargers voicemail on there, and give us your name, where you're from, and all of those things too. But make sure, most importantly, you guys are back here tomorrow for crossover Thursday with Locked On Chargers, Locked On Steelers. It's a big one this week, but until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.